You really can't miss it, can you? The way India's going digital. I mean, everywhere you look, scanning QR codes, hailing rides on apps, it's happening fast.
It really is. And that brings us right to the main topic today, ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce.
Exactly. ONDC.
And what's really interesting about ONDC, I think, is its structure. It's not trying to be, another big marketplace.
Right.
It's aiming to build this open infrastructure, almost like the basic rules that let different email providers talk to each other. ONDC wants to do that, but for buying and selling online, make it more sort of democratic.
Yeah, leveling the playing field. So for this deep dive, we've really gone through quite a bit, different reports, data, trying to get a good picture. And our goal today is pretty clear. We want to explore what ONDC could actually do, across different areas and really what it might mean for you listening. So
Yeah.
where is this actually starting to, happen? Where are we seeing it work?
Well, the first steps were really about proving the concept could work in, like, everyday situations. So hyperlocal groceries, online food delivery, those were the early test beds.
Okay.
And even there, we saw some genuinely cool innovations pop up. Take Namayatri in Bengaluru.
Ah, yeah, I read about
It
that.
basically lets passengers book auto rickshaws directly. The drivers get the whole fare. And it's not small scale. Over 47,000 drivers signed up. More than 6 lakh trips already. Shows what direct connection can do.
Wow, yeah. That's money straight into the driver's pocket. No big platform fee. That's a real change.
Definitely.
Were there other early examples that jumped out?
The Unified Energy Interface, the UEI, for electric vehicle charging, that's another really good one showing the open network idea.
Yeah, that worked.
Okay, imagine you have an EV. With this, you could potentially use one app, maybe one certification, to access and pay at like 14,000 charging stations from 7 different companies.
One app for all of them.
Yeah, all accessible through one app, potentially.
Mhm.
And that makes it fair for the charging providers, big or small. Plus, it's just simpler for EV owners, one certification needed. It really shows that core idea. Open access, things working together. That's central to ONDC.
Got it. So these are the early wins, the proofs of concept. What about looking ahead? What are the bigger, maybe broader ways ONDC might change things? What other uses are people talking about?
So the report we looked at lays out about 10 potential use cases. And for someone like you trying to see the big picture, a few really stand out.
Okay.
One is really boosting the whole direct-to-consumer or D2C scene.
How so?
Well, by potentially lowering the costs for businesses to reach customers directly. Cutting down on those platform fees, it could make it much more practical for brands to build their own relationships with customers.
So bypassing the big marketplaces.
Exactly. Getting out of those walled gardens.
Yeah.
Letting brands actually own their customer data, their interactions. That really hasn't been easy to do at scale until now.
That's a huge point, owning the data, the relationship. Okay, what else should we be watching?
Another big one is bringing self-employed professionals properly into the digital economy.
Like who?
Think about maybe your local yoga teacher or a freelance designer, maybe a carpenter. ONDC could give them a platform, an open one, to show their skills and find customers they wouldn't normally reach.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Then there's digitalizing B2B, business-to-business trading, especially transactions between the smaller guys, the MSMEs. They're often kind of left out by the big platforms.
So like a small coffee roaster selling to cafes across the country.
Precisely. That kind of thing. Making those connections easier.
That could really spark some growth, create new links. What about just, buying our everyday stuff?
Absolutely. ONDC could really improve hyper-local shopping. Your neighborhood bakery, that little craft store.
Yeah.
They could get online easier, serve people right there in the area.
And maybe mix online and offline better.
Yeah, the omni-channel thing, you might browse in a shop, then order it delivered through the network. Or the other way around. And it could also bring local services online, easier, the appliance repair, tailoring, stuff like that.
Right.
And maybe the biggest long-term thing, how the transaction data generated on ONDC could help businesses get access to credit, financial services.
Okay, using the data for finance. Okay. Interesting. So the report dives into specific sectors, right? Let's start with groceries. We all buy groceries. How could a ONDC change that?
Right, groceries. ONDC could mean a much wider choice of products online, more convenience, especially in, say, Tier 2 or Tier 3 cities where online grocery isn't as big yet.
Easier access outside the big metros.
Exactly. And there's even talk about maybe getting financing options for grocery shopping. The market's already huge. It was back in FY22, and it's expected to grow a lot by 2030.
But weren't there challenges mentioned too? In groceries?
Oh, definitely. There's demand for premium stuff in regular stores that isn't always met. And just reaching people effectively in those smaller cities is tough, logistically, economically.
So how does ONDC help there?
That's where the apps come in the buyer and seller apps. They need to get users on board, obviously, but also give local Kirana stores, wholesalers, real reasons to join, like access to credit maybe, get them participating.
Makes sense. Incentives are key.
And remember, groceries isn't just one thing. You've got fresh stuff, packaged goods. They all have different dynamics.
True. Okay, let's switch gears. Fashion and lifestyle. That feels very visual, very different. What's the ONDC angle there?
Fashion could become much more personal, more aspirational online with ONDC. Think about more interactive selling, maybe like live commerce. You see that working really well elsewhere. It's more of a connection.
Live streams, showing off clothes.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Plus, the network could help smaller sellers. Give them tools and support to, get their inventory online, manage catalogs, even handle photo shoots, taxes, stuff that's hard for small businesses.
So empowering the little guys, the independent designers and shops.
Potentially, yes. But then, for you, the buyer.
Yeah, what about the shopping experience itself?
The buyer apps are key there. They need to be smooth, enjoyable, and dealing with returns efficiently, that's huge in fashion. ONDC could maybe help streamline that.
Returns are always a hassle online.
Tell me about it. And sellers right now, they often face high commissions, fierce competition from the marketplace's own brands, operational headaches, price wars.
So ONDC offers an alternative.
It could help them find B2B partners, build an omni-channel presence, be visible online and offline, drive traffic to their own sites maybe, offer better omni-channel experiences for customers like virtual try-ons or financing for expensive items.
So it's supporting the whole ecosystem around the sale, not just the click to buy.
Exactly. Now, electronics. We buy a lot of gadgets online already. How does ONDC fit in there?
Yeah, that market's pretty mature online, isn't it?
It is. Consumer electronics is a big online category. Market size in FY22 was substantial, and it's tipped to double by 2030.
Wow.
Here, the report suggests good marketing by the buyer apps, plus flexible payment options from financing partners. Those will be really important to push more direct-to-consumer sales.
And for the sellers, the physical stores.
Seller apps need to lead the charge in getting those physical stores digitized, especially the traditional retailers. Help them get fully involved in this digital growth.
Bridging the physical and digital gap, again, seems like a common thread. Okay, what if we're hungry? Online food delivery, what's the ONDC story?
Well, right now, online food delivery in India is mostly big cities, mostly dinner time, right?
Well, pretty much.
Generated over, $5 billion in FY22. But there's huge potential for growth, maybe 6 times bigger by 2030. Still, penetration here is lower than in places like China or the U.S.
Why is that? What are the hurdles for restaurants?
Especially for smaller places, it's tough. Margins are thin because of commissions. Getting listed can be hard. Getting noticed is even harder.
So how does ONDC help a local restaurant, maybe a small family-run place?
It could give them access to more customer data, more detailed stuff, help them target better, maybe lower their marketing and operating costs. The report uses this idea of an unbundled model. So imagine you search for home-cooked biryani on a buyer app.
Biryani.
Right. ODC could show you options not just from big restaurants, but maybe home cooks, cloud kitchens too. And you could choose different ways to get it, pick it up yourself, use a third-party delivery, pay in different ways.
More choice, potentially from smaller independent cooks.
Exactly. But it really depends on the buyer apps being easy to use and having accurate info about the restaurants, the food. That's what will attract customers in this more open setup.
I definitely like the sound of more variety and supporting smaller food places. Okay, pharmaceuticals. How does ONDC touch access to medicines?
A big issue in pharma is sometimes affording expensive medicines. Lack of credit options can be a real barrier.
True.
ONDC could help build trust by, say, pooling ratings and reviews for sellers and products. Makes it easier to find reliable online pharmacies.
Like a trust score.
Something like that. And it could also speed up getting local pharmacies online, help you discover a wider range of medicines. Plus, better hyper-local logistics could mean faster delivery.
Anything that improves healthcare access is vital. Okay, let's talk about getting around. Mobility. What's the potential there?
So mobility here just means transport you can access digitally. That market's expected to more than double by 2030.
Yeah.
Mostly driven by two-wheelers and three-wheelers.
Autos and bikes.
Yeah. But right now, it's very concentrated in the top few cities. And overall, digitalization is still quite low. Plus, you have issues like not enough people owning cars and the challenges drivers for ride-hailing apps face.
So how does an open network help?
It could potentially link up different types of transport, public and private, on one platform, make your whole journey smoother.
Like booking a metro ride and then an auto for the last bit all in one go?
Potentially, yeah. And it might lead to fairer commission structures for drivers. Better earnings for them could mean better availability, better service for us.
That'll be good.
There's even the idea of bringing public transport, buses, metros, into this same digital framework.
Wow, that could really change commuting in cities. Okay, last one in the B2C space. Hospitality, hotels, travel.
Hospitality is growing steadily, expected to almost double by FY30. Online bookings are growing faster than offline, but overall digital use is still behind places like the US and China.
So room for growth online.
Definitely. ONDC could let you find everything for your trip in one place: hotels, homestays, local tours, maybe even transport.
A one-stop travel shop.
Kind of. And it might help tackle the high commissions charged by the big online travel agencies, the OTAs. Could lead to better prices.
That would be welcome.
The report gives an example of someone in Chennai planning a trip to Sikkim. Using one buyer app, they could potentially book their flights, find accommodation, maybe book some local experiences all together.
Sounds convenient. What are the catches?
Well, success depends on things like fair visibility and search results for all kinds of places, big hotels and small homestays, and clear rules for hosts, especially in that home-sharing part of the market.
Makes sense. Okay, we've covered a lot on the consumer side, but you mentioned B2B earlier, construction, agriculture. What's the potential there?
Yeah, ONDC could really shake up B2B, especially helping out small and medium businesses, making it easier for them to trade directly with each other.
So construction, how does it help there?
Well, buying building materials now can be pretty messy, inefficient. ONDC could improve price discovery, make it clear what things cost, and maybe help standardize materials. Easier for contractors to find what they need at good prices.
Okay.
And crucially, it could make getting finance easier, things like loans, bill discounting. That's often vital for cash flow in construction.
Helping smaller builders manage their finances better. What about farming, agriculture?
Farmers face huge challenges, right? Getting good quality inputs, seeds, fertilizer, and then finding good markets to sell their crops.
Yeah, always tough.
ONDC could connect them to eB2B marketplaces, find better inputs maybe, and get more direct access to buyers, potentially better prices for their produce.
Cutting out some middlemen.
Potentially. And again, like we've seen elsewhere, the digital transaction records could make it easier, cheaper for farmers to get credit. The report uses an example, Satish, a farmer in Jharkhand needing better inputs. ONDC could potentially link him directly to suppliers.
So creating more direct lines, more efficiency, even in sectors that haven't been super digitized.
Exactly. It's about those connections.
Now, none of this works if you can't actually move the goods. Logistics. How does that fit into the ONDC picture?
Logistics is critical. India's logistics sector is huge, but it faces challenges infrastructure, costs are higher than some other places, and it's not very digitized overall.
Right.
ONDC could really improve visibility across the whole logistics chain, make things more efficient. Right now, there isn't even a standard way for different companies to easily share simple things like GPS data. That slows coordination down.
So ONDC could provide that common platform.
It could foster a more open, connected logistics network that could help lower costs and just make the whole supply chain run smoother.
Better logistics helps everyone, every sector. Okay, but with all these different parts, buyer apps, seller apps, logistics guys, how do you make sure it's trustworthy? How do you guarantee a good experience for the customer?
That's probably the most important question. Trust and a smooth journey. Search, order, payment, fixing problems are absolutely vital.
So how does it work in this unbundled world?
Well, different players have different jobs. The buyer app handles your search. A payment gateway does the money part. Seller apps manage the product info and the order. Logistics moves the item. And things like digital contracts define how they all interact.
But what if something goes wrong? Like the search doesn't understand what I want or they can't deliver to my area?
Yeah, those are real challenges in an unbundled system. ONDC is trying to address them with things like standard ways to categorize products, taxonomy, and tools to figure out serviceability. But crucially, there's a structured system for complaints.
How does that work?
It's a three-step process. First, raise the issue. If that doesn't work, it becomes a formal grievance. And if it's still not resolved, it can go to dispute resolution. There are set timelines, ways to escalate things. It's designed to build confidence, make sure problems get sorted out fairly.
Having a clear process for complaints is definitely key for trust. Okay, we touched on finance earlier, but let's dive a bit deeper. How could ONDC really change financial services?
India's already strong here, right? Lots of bank accounts, big stock market, tons of real-time digital payments.
Yeah, UPI and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
ONDC's transaction data could unlock even more financial inclusion, especially for those MSMEs we talked about.
No.
Imagine a small trucking company owner. Getting a traditional loan might be tough, lots of paperwork, but their transaction history on ONDC could make it much easier to get credit.
Based on their actual business activity.
Precisely. The report also mentions invoice financing. So sellers on ONDC could get paid faster, basically get working capital based on their invoices. That's huge for cash flow.
Okay, what else?
You might also see more embedded insurance, offered right when you're booking a service, seamlessly.
Like travel insurance when booking a trip.
Yeah, or maybe insurance for delivery. The key is using that alternative data from ONDC with consent, always with consent, alongside maybe credit scores, tax info, GST data, to make better lending decisions, to reach businesses and people who are maybe missed by the old ways.
So smarter, more inclusive use of data for finance. That's powerful. What about taking this whole ONDC idea global? Is that something people are thinking about?
The report does look at that. It suggests 4 main things needed for ONDC to potentially expand beyond India.
What are they?
First, smooth, secure ways to handle payments across borders. Second, really strong complaint systems that work internationally. Third, a global standard for describing products and services, like that taxonomy idea, but worldwide. And fourth, just international cooperation, getting countries to support these open digital networks.
Seems like a lot would need to fall into place for that.
It's definitely a long-term vision.
So if there are companies listening now thinking, should we join ONDC, what's the advice?
The report basically says, think carefully. Look at your own business, your goals. Understand the upsides and the potential downsides of joining this new open network. It's not a one-size-fits-all decision.
Makes sense. Now, ONDC feels like a big deal, but it's not happening in a vacuum, is it? It's part of this wider digital push in India.
Absolutely. It's not alone. The report points to other big digital infrastructure projects, like Diksha for education, eSkill India for job skills.
Yeah, Diksha's huge. Is it?
Massive. 160 million enrollments, 130 million courses completed in loads of languages. It just shows what these kinds of digital platforms can achieve at scale. They can really change entire sectors.
And what about things like social media, social commerce, and content in local languages? How does that fit in?
That's super relevant.
Yeah.
People in India spend a lot of time on social media. And social commerce buying through social platforms has exploded. ONDC could potentially provide the sort of back-end infrastructure for a lot of that social selling. Make it easier for small businesses using social media to reach markets, especially outside the big cities.
Using social media to sell, powered by ONDC underneath.
Could be. And then there's the language aspect. Huge investments are going into AI for Indian languages, things like Bhashini, Project Vani. Making digital experiences work well in local languages is key to getting everyone involved in the digital economy.
Making it truly accessible. Okay, so pulling all these threads together, what's the ultimate vision here? What's the big dream for ONDC?
The long-term idea, the way the report describes it, is for ONDC to become a network of networks.
Network of networks.
Yeah. Think of this really deeply connected digital ecosystem where new possibilities just keep emerging, new combinations of services, interactions we can't even really predict today. It's about building that base layer that allows innovation and inclusion in a way that, one single closed platform just can't.
Like the internet itself.
Kind of like the internet, yeah. A network of networks that just enabled incredible innovation. ONDC hopes to do something similar, but specifically for commerce.
Okay, so let's try and sum up this deep dive. ONDC. It really does have the potential to be a game changer for digital commerce in India. It's not just about more online shopping. It's about opening things up, empowering smaller businesses, individual sellers, making things more inclusive across so many different areas.
That's the core idea.
And for you listening, hopefully it means a richer digital world, maybe less dominated by just a few giants. More choice, better experiences potentially.
Exactly. And that leaves us with a final thought, maybe something for you to chew on.
Come on.
How might an open network like ONDC change not just how we buy and sell things, but fundamentally change who gets to really participate in the digital economy? What kind of unexpected innovations might bubble up from all this interconnectedness? What could it mean for your own interests, your own learning, as this digital world keeps changing so fast?